Just wait for a while. Once the others are joining, there were around 15 participants. Right, okay. So let's say one by one, what are the things you have to plan under your research design and planning and design, right? So the first thing you have to find out what are the types of data required, right? So the under this data required, you have to find out mainly whether you need primary data or secondary data. Do you ever heard the difference between primary data and secondary data? Have you ever heard the difference between primary data and secondary data? So we say the primary data, so I'll have a slide later as well. So primary data is the data uh, you are collecting for the first time, right? So you by yourself going to the field, interview the people or interview your consumers, whoever, and you by yourself collecting this data. So you're collecting this data for the first time. This is ඔයා collect කරගන්න data. ඔයා හොයාගන්න data වලට අපි කියනවා primary data කියලා, right? So this is the primary data. Then secondary data means the already available or the published data. Then the available data. It may be the, let's say you're finding out the data regarding the sales of week, last year's sales of your company. So that's a secondary data because you don't have to find out the last year's sales. It's already available. It's published. There may be a report. There may be a record, right? See, so we call these as secondary data. So you can refer to the books, research articles, the journals, the websites, newspapers, the records, reports. So from these things, you can find out the secondary data. So already available, already published data, right? So the first thing you have to plan in order to achieve your research objectives, then we are calling objectives ටිකක් හදාගන්න තියෙන්නේ. Now, what your whole purpose of your study is to achieve these objectives. ඔයා research එක කරන්නේම මේ objectives ටික achieve කරන්න. So at the end of your market research or market survey, you have to achieve the specific objectives you have set. So now in your research plan, you have to find out whether you require primary or secondary data to achieve these research objectives. Clear? So this is what you have to do in order to as the deciding the types of data required, right? Then you have to select the research technique, right? So what is the technique you are going to follow in order to conduct the research? Okay, so when it comes to a research, there are several techniques you can follow to conduct a research. So these are the techniques. One thing is you can do it by observations. The second one is you can do it by experiments, experimentation. And third one is survey, and you can do it by depth, or we say depth interviews or in-depth interviews, right? So observations means you just observe and record the data, right? You observe how the customers coming into a supermarket and purchasing your product. So by observing, you're recording it. So that is the getting the data through observation. ඔයාගේ ස්ටඩි එකට data ගන්න ඔයා මොකද්ද follow කරන technique එක කියලා ඔයා තීරණය කරනවා. එකක් තමයි ඔයාට observation වලින් පුළුවන්. Let's say you're You are now going to find out the reasons for your sales reduction. So in order to find out no, you want to find out the sales of your product or the product sales balance. So you are going to a supermarket and for a specific time period, you are counting the number of customers who purchased your product. You observe it. ඔයා ඇත්තෙන්ට ගිහලා ඒක බලාගෙන ඉඳලා තමයි data ගන්න. This is we call as observation. Right. So then the other one is experimentation. So you know in most of the laboratory research, the crop science research or the biology research, the research are based on experimentations. You are doing experiments, right? Or සමහර වෙලාවට පැලටියක් හිටවල ඒකේ growth එක බලනවා. ඒකේ leaf growth එක, ඒකේ plant growth එක බලනවා. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයා මොනවා හරි මොනවාද microbes ලා හැදෙන්න petri dish එක දාලා ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ growth එක බලනවා. These types we call experimentation. So usually in market surveys or market research, we do not do experimentations, right? So survey is the most popular way of collecting data. So most popular research technique you can follow for a market research. So in a survey, what we are going to do is we are going to our target population. That means it may be your customers, it may be farmers, it may be producers, whatever the target set of respondents, and you go and you ask some questions and you get their answers. So based on asking questions and getting their answers, we collect data. This is what a survey is. Is it clear? This is very important to understand what a survey is. Is it clear to you what a survey? So you are just by asking questions and getting the answers for your target respondents, you get the data, you collect the data. This is what happening in a survey. Is it clear to you? What is happening in a survey? Is it clear to you? This is very important because all the other parts in this research process is based on the survey techniques. Clear to you? Any questions? Survey එකක වෙන්නේ මොකක්ද කියලා තේරුණාද කියලායි මම අහන්නේ.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Right. So yeah. And the other one is the depth interviews, right? So depth interviews means, or we call this as in-depth interviews, right? You are interviewing people who can get your the data, the opinions, ideas, the information for your research, right? You go to them and you are setting some set of questions. So not just strictly not adapting to the set of questions you are preparing, you just go and you are having a conversation with those people. So with that conversation, you absorb the data or the information required for your research, right? This is what happening in the depth interviews. So my point here is, so as the researcher, once you design or once you plan your research, you have to find out which technique you are going to use for your study, right? So you have to decide whether you are doing observations or whether you are doing experimentation, whether you are doing survey or depth interviews. So usually for a market research, you can either go for a survey or you can go for a depth interviews, right? So observations and experimentations actually we do not use, but observations are very rarely used. But most commonly used are the survey or the depth interviews, right? So you can decide whether you're doing a survey or you're doing an interview with the target respondents or target people, right? So you have to select it. Okay, right. You have now selected the types of data you know it, right? Whether it is primary or secondary, or you need both. ගොඩක් වෙලාවට ගොඩක් research වල primary and secondary data දෙකම ඕන වෙනවා. So you select it and then you select the research technique, right? So then, okay. This one, you have to find out the answer for this question. What is qualitative research and a quantitative research? Right, so note this down. I will ask you on the next bit, what is a qualitative research and what is a quantitative research, right? So find it, read about this and find out what is a qualitative research and a quantitative research, okay? Right. I have the answers, but I'm not going to tell you right now. So you have to read it out, okay? So, right. Then now you have selected the type of data required and you have selected the research technique, right? You have to select the research technique and then you have to find out uh, then what you have to select is your research instrument. So based on the sample data of the research technique you have selected, you may need a research tool or research instrument. This research instrument is the tool you are using to collect the primary data. You know now the primary data is the data you are collecting for the first time, right? So what you have to do is now you have to decide what is the tool you want to collect the primary data. So this tool we call as the research instrument, right? So mainly, if you are conducting a survey, so now I mentioned you that for a market survey or market research, your data collection technique would be a survey. Market research එකේදී ගොඩක් ඔයාලට කරන්න වෙන survey එක. ඒතකොට ඔයාලට survey එකක් කරන්න නම් ඔයාලට ඕන කරන tool එක තමයි, ඔයාලට ඕන කරන instrument එක තමයි, the instrument you need is the questionnaires. Right. So for an example, now you are familiar with doing these laboratory studies now. Now let's say you are going to you have planted a set of plants. Let's say you have planted a set of tomato plants. So you want to measure the length of the leaf, right? That is the data you are getting. Organ primary data එක තමයි leaf length එක මනින එක. Right? So what is the instrument you need? What is the research instrument or tool you need? Organ data එක තමයි leaf එකේ tomato leaf එකේ මේ දිග මනින එක. මොකක්ද ඉන්ස්ට්‍රුමන්ට් එක ඔයාලට ඕන වෙන දිග මනින්න? What is the tool or the instrument you need?
A ruler.
Yes, you may need a ruler to measure the length, right? Very good. So likewise, now you are going to do a survey, right? So what I mentioned to you is what we are doing in a survey is we are asking some questions from your target people's target set of respondents, and then you get their answers. So you're asking questions and getting their answers. So in order to do this question and answering session, ප්‍රශ්න අහලා උත්තර ගන්න නම් you need a tool. So the tool you need is a questionnaire. So if you are asking questions and getting their answers, you need some set of questions, right? So this set of questions we call as a questionnaire, right? So questionnaire is the set of, you are formally formatting and you are setting some set of questions in a sequence in order to get the primary data you want. ඔයාට ඕන කරන primary data ටික ගන්න අවශ්‍ය වෙන ප්‍රශ්න ටික ඔයා හදනවා. සමහර වෙලාවට අපි ඒවා ඕපන් තියෙනවා. ඒගොල්ලන්ට කැමති විදිහට උත්තර දෙන්න. එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයා සමහර ඔප්ෂන්ස් දෙනවා. මල්ටිපල් චොයිස් විදිහට ඔප්ෂන්ස් දෙනවා. අන්න ඒ විදිහට ඔයා ප්‍රශ්නාවලියක් හදනවා. අන්නේ ප්‍රශ්නාවලිය. එහෙම නැත්නම් අපි ඒකට කියන questionnaire එක. So this is the tool or the instrument you will need to get the or collect the primary data. Right. So you may have this experience, right? Have you ever responded to a survey? So maybe on the you may responded an online survey or a physical survey. Have you ever responded? ඔයා කවදා හරි රෙස්පොන්ඩ් කරලා තියෙනවා. කියන්නේ සර්වේ එකකට ඔයා ආන්සර්ස් දීලා තියෙනවද? Google සර්වේ එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්, ඔන්ලයින් සර්වේ එකක් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙම නැත්නම් කවුරු හරි ඔයාගේ ළඟට ඇවිල්ලා print කරපු ප්‍රශ්න සෙට් එකක් අරගෙන ඔයාගෙන් උත්තර අහලා පුරව ගන්නවා වෙන්න පුළුවන්. නැත්නම් ඔයාට පුරවලා දෙන්න ප්‍රශ්න ටිකක් දෙන්න පුළුවන්. Have you ever responded to a survey?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. So this is what, have you seen the questions they have asked? So they have sometimes asked some general information about you, and they may have asked some simple questions, and by the in sequence මුලින් ටික ලේසියෙන් උත්තර දෙන්න පුළුවන් ප්‍රශ්න අහන ඊට පස්සේ ටික ටික ඒක ප්‍රශ්න ටික පොඩ්ඩක් අමාරු කරනවා යාට රෑන්ක් කරන්න කියනවා ඊට පස්සේ මොනවද අර agree the disagree the කියන්නේ කියනවා. So likewise in a sequence we are setting a set of questions. This is the instrument or the tool we are using for a survey. Right. So once you plan your research, you have to select what is your research instrument. So if it is a survey, your research instrument would be a questionnaire. Okay, now you know what are the types of data you required for your study, and you have planned the research technique, whether it's a survey or whatever the technique. And based on the technique you have selected the research instrument, right? So once you have selected the research instrument, then your next step is you have to design the sampling plan, right? So what you have to do is you have to define the target population or audience you are going to collect the data, right? Now let's say the previous example, your sales has been reduced by 20%. Now you are going to identify the opportunities to increase the sales. So one of your objectives may be to examine the present status. So this is the study, right? So now you have to decide from whom are you going to collect this data. This is we call as your target population. Okay, හරිද? මේ කියන්නේ දැන් ඔයා ස්ටඩි එක ප්ලෑන් කරලා තියෙන්නේ. හරිද? ඔයා ස්ටඩි එක ප්ලෑන් කරලා ගන්න ඕන data ගන්න ඕන විදිය ඔක්කොම plan කරලා තියෙනවා. Now what you are going to do is you have to find out from whom are you going to collect the data. So this is we call as your target population or the audience, right? Maybe your target population or your audience, again, or the data ගන්න ඕන වෙන්නේ maybe from your consumers, maybe from the general public, නිකන් general public එකෙන් වෙන්න පුළුවන්. Or else you may have to get the data from the employees in the organization, maybe from the top management of your organization, right? So you have to find out who will be your target population. කාගෙන්ද මේ data අරගන්නේ, right? So now you're going to do a study to identify the reasons for the less sales, right? එකක් තමයි ඔයාලට identify කරගන්න ඕනේ, examine කරගන්න ඕනේ. දැනට තියෙන reasons for the low sales, right? Then sales අඩු වෙන්න හේතු හොයාගන්න නම් කාගෙන්ද data අරගන්න? කාවද අර question එකක් දීලා data ටිකක් අරගන්න? You have to identify the reasons for the low sales. ඒක තමයි එක objective එකක් ඔයාගේ study එකේ. ඒකට කාගෙන්ද data අරගන්න? ඔයා හිතන විදියට. Yes. Is my question clear to you? I was giving you an example throughout the lesson now. Your company sales has been reduced. Now you are doing a study to identify the opportunities to expand your sales. So one thing you want to find out is you want to find out the reasons for the low sales of your for your biscuit. So in order to identify the reasons, from whom you should get the data. කාගෙන්ද මේ sales අඩු වෙන reasons හොයාගන්න නම් data ගන්න ඕනේ.
General public.
Yeah, maybe the general public, or if we are specifying it more from the consumers of your product, maybe, right? අයෝගොල්ලෝ දැන් අඩුවෙන් අපේ product එක ගන්න කියලා හොයාගන්න. Maybe the consumers, or maybe from the general public. So this is your target population or your audience. Okay, so you have to identify who will be your target audience, right? Right, okay. Let's say, so as you mentioned, you are going to get the data from the general public to identify the reasons for the losses, right? Okay. Now, if it is the general public, now let's say you are doing this study in Western province. So your target population is the public who are living in Western province. Now, is it possible to get the answers, give your questionnaire to each and every person who are living in the Western province and get their data? Is it possible? No, right? අපි ගත්තොත් ලක්ෂ ගාණක් ඉන්න වෙස්ටර්න් ප්‍රොවින්ස් එක ඇතුලේ විතරක්. අපි දැන් ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ තමයි ඔයාලගේ ටාගට් පොපියුලේෂන් එක. ඒතර වෙස්ටර්න් ප්‍රොවින්ස් එකේ ඉන්න හැමෝගෙම data ගන්න එක ඒක possible වැඩක් නෙමෙයි. So what we are going to do is we are selecting a sample from your target population. Right? What do you mean by a sample? හැම වෙලාවෙම sample එකක් කියලා කියන්නේ උදාහරණයක් කියන එක. ඒ කියන්නේ ඒකේ කොටසක් කියන එක. Right? So sample, so what you're going to do is, so from your target population, to represent your target population, you're selecting a small set of people who are representing your target population. So this is we call as the sample. So here, in order to represent the general public in Western province, you will select a specific set of people from the Western province to respond to your survey. ඔයාගේ survey එකට respond කරන්න ඔයා Western province එකේ ඉන්න අයගෙන් පොඩි පිරිසක් select කරගන්න. Right? That is your sample. Now you have to determine. Now you cannot do, always keep in mind your sample should represent your target population. Target population එක represent වෙන විදිහට තමයි sample එක ගන්න. Now you cannot do this sampling, right, as you want. So always it should be a representation of the target population. So in order to find out, in order to select this sample, you can follow a sampling technique, right? So these sampling techniques or sampling methods, or we call sampling procedures, there are several sampling techniques or sampling procedures. Mainly there are two types, probability and non-probability sampling. So here's another task for you to find out probability and non-probability sampling techniques. කොහොමද sample එක select කරගන්නේ කියන එක ඔයාට මේ sampling technique වලින් decide කරන්න පුළුවන්. එකක් තමයි අපි randomly select කරනවා. Western province එකේ ඉන්න හැමෝගෙම නම් list එකක් අරගෙන අපි randomly ඒගොල්ලන්ව select කරනවා. That is one sampling technique, right? So likewise, there are several sampling techniques. So there's a task for you to find out the sampling techniques. There are main two types, probability and non-probability. So you have to find out the main two types. The sampling techniques under probability sampling and non-probability sampling, right? Is it clear to you? Now I have given you two tasks. Tasks දෙකක් දීලා තියෙනවා ලබන සතියේ උත්තර හොයාගෙන ඉන්න. One is qualitative and quantitative research, and then the sampling techniques, probability and non-probability sampling techniques. Okay. Right. So now, based on the following a sampling technique, you can select your sample and you have to determine the sample size. ඔයා sample එක represent වෙන්න ඔයාගේ study එක කරන වෙලා කාලය ඔයාට තියෙන time frame එකත් එක්ක ඔයාට sample size එක decide කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඔයා 50ක්ද මේ question එකකට ගන්නෙ 100කකින් responses ගන්නවද 50කකින් response ගන්නවද 200කකින් ගන්නවද කියලා sample size එක ඔයා decide කරන්න. Now, can you understand under this designing the sampling plan, You have to determine your target population, then you have to determine your sample size, and also you have to determine which sampling technique you will use to select your respondent for the sample. Sample එකට ගන්න පිරිස select කරගන්නේ මොන technique එක use කරලා. ඔන්න ওই ටික decide කරන්න ඕනේ under the designing the sampling plan. Is it clear to you? Is it clear to you what you have to do under designing the sampling plan? Do you have any questions? If you have any questions or you need to explain the things again, you can ask or you can put them into the chat box. Is it clear? Any questions? Okay, so you're not asking the questions, but at the end of the lesson, I'm giving you an assignment. So if you do not understand the things, you will not be able to do the assignment, right? Okay, so now you have designed or you have planned your study. දැන් ඔක්කොම plan කරලා තියෙන study එකේ මේ primary data ගන්නවා, secondary data ගන්නවා. ඊට පස්සේ මේ විදිහට sampling technique එකෙන් sample එක select කරනවා. මෙච්චර sample size එකකට යනවා. question එකක් හදනවා. question එකෙන් තමයි samples ගන්න, data ගන්න. So you have designed everything. Now, what you have to do is you have to follow this design, you have to follow this plan, and you have to collect the data. So according to your plan, you have to select the sample, you have to design the sampling technique, and you have to design the questionnaire. Finally, you are collecting data using your question. So now questionnaire හදලා තියෙන questionnaire හදනවා sampling technique එකෙන් sample එක select කරලා තියෙන්නේ. ඒ සිලෙක්ට් කරගත්ත එක්කෙනා ළඟට ගිහිල්ලා question එකකට උත්තර ගන්න එක තමයි ඊළඟට කරන්න තියෙන්නේ. So this is what the collection of data, right? So this data collection, you can do it as two types. That means in-house research or external research through the external research agencies. So once you do the market service, you can collect data using one of these types. So in-house research means now you're the researcher, you by yourself collecting data. ඔයා තමයි researcher විදිහට ඔයා තමයි ගෙවල් ගානේ හරි කඩවල් ගානේ හරි එක එක respondent ගාවට ගිහිල්ලා එහෙම නැත්නම් ඔයාම තමයි online Google sheet එකක් හදලා ඒක respondents අතරට යවලා. So researcher by yourself, you are collecting the data. It may be you're physically going to your respondents and collecting data, or you are designing an online survey and sending it to your sample, or collecting the data. So however, researcher by yourself conducting the research. The other one is now if some big companies are doing market surveys. Let's say Munchie needs to do a market survey with their customers. So their customer base is very high and they have enough money as well. So what they will do is they will let an external research agency to collect data for you. එතකොට ඒගොල්ලෝ මොකද කරන්නේ? ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ ටීම් එක වෙලාව නාස්ති කරන්න. ඒගොල්ලෝ දෙනවා රිසර්ච් ඒජන්සි එකකට okay අපිට මෙන්න මේ data ටික collect කරලා දෙන්න. මෙන්න මේ question එකකට අපිට මේ data ටික collect කරලා දෙන්න. So this is what collecting data through external research agencies. Have you heard about external research agencies doing surveys like this? අපිට ඕන නම් අපිට පුළුවන් external agency එකකට සල්ලි දීලා ඒගොල්ලන්ට කියන්න අපි වෙනුවෙන් data ටික collect කරලා දෙන්න කියලා. එතකොට අපිට යන්න දෙයක් නැහැ questionnaires අරගෙන එක එක්කෙනා ගාවට ඒගොල්ලෝ යාළුවගේ team එකක් prepare කරලා they will do the data collection for you, right? So you can use either method, okay? So now you know the primary data and secondary data. So usually we call primary data as field research or field data because you're going to the field. That means you're going to your respondents and collect your data. But secondary data is we call as or secondary desk research or desk data. That means your the economic මේසක වාඩි වෙලා ඉඳලා දැනට available reports journals ඕවා බලලා තමයි data ගන්න. අපි ඒකට කියනවා desk research එකක් කියලා. අරකට field එකට ගිහින් ගන්න ඒවට field research කියනවා. Right? Okay, so either by using a external agency or either by the researcher itself, they are collecting data. So once you complete the data collection, what you have to do next is you have to analyze this data and you have to interpret, right? So let's see, in your questionnaire, now sales reduce when හේතු හොයන්න. ඒක එක question එකක් අහනවා. How many packets of biscuit did you consume last month? ගිය මාසේ ඔයා මේ බිස්කට් වලින් පැකට් කීයක් consume කරාද කියලා. Okay, you have interviewed 50 respondents. 50 දෙනෙක්ගෙන් ඕක අහලා තියෙනවා. පළවෙනි එක්කෙනා කියනවා බිස්කට් පැකට් 5යි, දෙවෙනි එක්කෙනා කියනවා 2යි, අනිත් එක්කෙනා කියනවා 1යි. Likewise, now you have 50 data regarding the consumption of biscuit. 50 දෙනාම මාසෙට කීයක් බිස්කට් පැකට් කීයක් කෑවද කියලා තියෙනවා. So by just looking at this data, can you get any idea about the biscuit sales of your company? එක්කෙනා මාසෙට බිස්කට් පැකට් කොච්චර ගත්තද කියන එක just බලලා ඔයාට කියන්න පුළුවන් ද ඔයාගේ බිස්කට් sales ගැන මොනවා හරි clear idea එකක් ගන්න පුළුවන්? You cannot get it, right? So therefore, what you are doing is, now these things we call just your raw data. So what you're doing is, that's why you need analysis. So what you're doing is you transform this raw data into information which you can get a more clearer idea about your research, right? So you will calculate the average biscuit number of biscuit packets sold in last month. දැන් අර එක එක්කෙනා දීපු බිස්කට් පැකට් ගානේ ඇවරේජ් එක අරගන්න. එතකොට ඔයාලට ගන්න පුළුවන් ඇවරේජ්ලි මේ මාසේ කන්සියුමර්ස්ලා මෙච්චර බිස්කට් පැකට් ප්‍රමාණයක් කන්සියුම් කරලා තියෙනවා. So isn't it more clearer than just looking at the number of biscuit packet consumed by each and every respondent? එක එක්කෙනා කාපු බිස්කට් පැකට් ටික බලනවට වඩා ඒකේ ඇවරේජ් එක ගත්තාම you can get a more clear picture, right? So this is what we are doing in data analysis and interpretation. You transform the raw data into information which you can get more clear idea about your research. Then you will interpret it. Okay, I will this number averagely this time my number of biscuit packets has been sold, or this is the average satisfaction, this is the satisfaction of the consumers, this is the ideas, suggestions of the consumers, you're interpreting. ඊට පස්සේ එක explain කරන්න. This is what we say the interpretation. So you need some analytical and communication skills to do the data analysis and interpretation. Okay. So finally, what you have to do is you have to present the research findings. Then data ටික හොයලා analyze කරලා ඔයාගත්ත findings තියෙනවානේ. අන්න ඒ ටික present කරන්න තියෙනවා. So you can either do a presentation or you can do a report. So if you are doing a report, it should be a simple and brief report, which should be understandable for your targets group. ඔයා මේක දෙන්නේ අපි හිතමු top management එකට දෙන්න තමයි මේ report එක දෙන්නේ අන්තිමට research එක කළා මේවා තමයි findings කියලා. ඒතර ඒගොල්ලන්ට ගැලපෙන විදිහට report එක ලියන්න. Right? So yeah. So you can use the graphs, bars, diagrams, or you can do the statistical testing. I'm not going to explain in detail because these things you have not learned yet. Right? ඉස්සරහට ඔයගොල්ලෝ final year එකට එනකොට statistical test ගැන ඉගෙන ගන්නවා. ඒකට ඔයාලට data analyze කරලා interpret කරලා පෙන්වන්න මේ statistical test, graphs, bar graphs, pie charts, diagrams ඕවා use කරන්න පුළුවන්. ඊට පස්සේ average, percentages, frequencies වගේ දේවල් use කරන්න පුළුවන්. Then you can explain it to your consumers, your target audience as a report. Okay, so this is the final step. So this is the format of the research report, right? You have to introduce your research with the background, research problem and objectives, the methodology, the results, after analyzing data, the results, conclusion, finally references and appendices. Appendices can annex karna or question can annex karna. Okay, these are the things you have to do in the data in a research process. Okay, so we have only 3 minutes. I will stop this meeting. You can log in again. I need to explain you the assignment. So please log into the meeting once again. Okay.